Hey everyone. Thanks for watching some new pro-revenge stories from Reddit. I hope you like them. The first story is called Illegally Park and Block Driveways in Our Neighborhood and Do It Consistently? While Throwing a Party? Expect what's coming. If you like the content, please subscribe to the channel. As always, the story is written from the original poster's point of view. 2 years ago, a new family moved into our quiet little neighborhood and began their reign of terror. We've lived here for over 20 years in this neighborhood. And except for these past 2 years, it's been wonderful. I love our neighbors. Except for this family. This family just sucks. I'm not even sure where to begin. They are loud, they are dirty, they are obnoxious. Their dog barks at all hours. They constantly yell at each other. They throw parties well into the night. They steal my older neighbor's paper. They actually trained their Rottweiler to fetch the neighbor's paper. Impressive but wrong. They throw their dog's poo into other yards. Just so much. They even cut my 80-something-year-old neighbor's prized roses for themselves. Who does that? There are about 100 issues I could write about how we've all dealt with them. But this past weekend was my own glorious take on it all. Oh, and yes, we tried talking to them. We tried inviting them over. We've done nice things for them. And all we've expected is that they act like decent neighbors. That's never happened. In our neighborhood, parking is scarce. Most of these homes are classic 1950s with single-lane driveways and parking is limited. Even on the streets. There's a busy road a few blocks away. It has a great nightlife and popular restaurants. This means that at times, especially on the weekends, the street can fill up. This family has 4 drivers and 5 vehicles. But only enough space for 2 in their driveway at a time. They would constantly park and leave their vehicles for days, and sometimes weeks, in front of others' homes. While sometimes leaving their driveway empty for no reason with all of their cars parked on the road. I kinda believe that, in itself, isn't that big of a deal. Except for how and when they would do it. They were intentional about it. They all would do so to try to cause the most grief with everyone. And this went on for months. A complete FU to everyone. After months of this, no one was retaliating. So they started parking deliberately in ways to make it difficult to get out of our driveways. I had to have my husband come out most mornings to guide me so I wouldn't hit their car as I backed out of my own driveway. There were also times where they squeezed my neighbor's car on the street to where they couldn't get out. Finally, an older retired neighbor goes down to the police station and inquires about what to do. They found a code or law stating that so much space from the sides of driveways is required. So we come home one night to freshly painted yellow curbs outlining every house surrounding this one. A few weeks ago, my husband's car breaks down and he has to get towed. On his way back, he starts talking with the tow truck driver about the neighbors and their cars. He tells my husband that if these cars are parking illegally, we should call the non-emergency line. If they receive a ticket, he should call him and he can tow them at the owner's expense. It's the law. My husband and he keep talking and even meet up for a beer a few nights later. He's a really good guy. About a month ago, we met a couple in our fair city and it just so happens that the husband is an officer. We were already planning on meeting that Friday night. When we met, I brought the neighbors and they're parking up. He says that he'll drive through on his shift if he gets the time. If he sees them parked in the yellow, he has no problem ticketing them. Great. He also gets some of his friends to check it out when they have time too. Fantastic. We've been calling almost daily at this point about their cars parked illegally, but nothing was happening. That Saturday night he sends me a text saying he ticketed 3 cars. I missed that text, so no tow truck. But I kind of figured with the 3 tickets they'd get the idea. They didn't. Off and on all week it was the same. This past Saturday, the teenage son throws a party. And everyone, I mean every single one of their guests and parked in the yellow of someone's driveway or blocked someone out altogether. Obviously, the kid told all of his friends to block our driveways or block our cars in. I sent a text to our officer friend who told me to call the non-emergency line and he'd be the one to look into it. But I'm scheming bigger. I call up the tow truck driver and tell him that there are at least 15 cars parked illegally. And all are about to receive parking tickets for blocking driveways and cars. I let him know we are friends with an officer. And he and I scheme a little further. We get a solid plan. I call our officer friend back and tell him about our plan. I also mention that the party is likely going to be filled with underage drinkers. Now, I hate busting parties. But I make exceptions for this kid and especially his little underage drinking and driving friends. The officer and I finalize the plan. Here's how it all went down. The officer and 3 of his partners go through the neighborhood, citing all of the cars. Meanwhile, our tow truck driver friend has assembled a group of drivers in the nearby grocery store parking lot. My husband and I make an anonymous call about a possible underage party. The tow truck drivers start at the ends of our street, grabbing the cars as quickly as possible. A few alarms here and there. But no way could they hear it at the party. When they approach the house, my husband makes an anonymous call about an underage party in our neighborhood. Conveniently, our officer friend just so happens to still be in the neighborhood. So he and his partner go over to the house to check on it. As they knock on the door, lights go out, music shuts off, and the house goes quiet. At this moment, the tow trucks come in and are now towing the remaining 5 cars right from in front of their home. I just wish I could see the kids' faces inside as they are all having a dilemma about what to do. Do they go out and bust themselves for underage drinking and try to stop their cars from being towed? Or do they just sit and bite the bullet and watch over $250 go down the drain? On Sunday, they had 3 cars returned from being towed. All 3 are parked just shy of the yellow lines. I'll call this a win. My husband and a couple of neighbors also spent Sunday putting up some new cameras. They were all very giddy and loud about it all. Something about all the lights and police on Saturday made them nervous. I think the cameras will be needed in the future. The neighbors sounded like they would have no problem with destroying their property for this brilliant revenge. What do you think? Comment below. The next story is called "Try to Take Advantage of Me." Let me hang you out to dry. This happened a few years ago. A bit of backstory. I'm Dutch and at the time, I was 29. I live with special care and I get paid disability by a government agency. It is 80% of the minimum wage for someone my age. The job I had at a place, let's call it job director, was not really a job. It was more like the place where I'm given care is paying job director to keep me entertained during the day so that I'm not stuck at home 24/7. So to sum that up, job director isn't paying me a dime. They are paid for me to be there and any actual work I do while there also turns them a profit. It's fair to say that they make double the money on me being there. Just keep that in mind as I start the story. Working at job director, I was the personal assistant of the electrician they had on staff. Let's call him Gus. Gus was an old hand in the trade and he was nearing his retirement. He worked only 2 mornings in the week. I worked 4 mornings in the week, so I was a perfect fit to be his assistant. And we did everything, not just electrical but also plumbing and putting up storage racks. And I did most of the menial things, lug the toolbox around, hand him tools, hold the ladder he was standing on, you name it. I did often get the crappy side of the jobs, but that's how you learned a trade in the old days before formal job training. Do the sucky jobs and stick around and you'll learn a thing or two. Well, that is what happened. I learned how to do most of the things Gus was doing regularly. It got to the point where he would send me out to do jobs alone. Jobs that didn't require him to inspect my work for safety reasons. Management of job director caught wind of this. Having believed that people in my situations couldn't really be taught anything, they suddenly saw untapped potential. So, for the other 2 days where Gus didn't need me, job director tried to send me to another project they had going for those days. The project in question was the supervision of people's bicycles at the local train station. They had already opened a kiosk and restaurant there and wanted to add supervision to the bicycles there. Side note to you non-Dutch out there. You'd be surprised how many bicycles are used and how many are stolen daily in my country. Particularly at train stations. I had to report to a small meeting with the guy supervising the train station. Let's call him Jim. The meeting was held so that he could instruct me on the job. Basically, it was a show presents to scare off thieves type of deal. Bright orange jacket riddled with reflector strips saying bicycle security on the back. Just walking around is a job I could easily do. But being more forward-thinking than my disability would suggest I, of course, have questions, and the conversation went like this: okay. So what about if I catch someone in the act of trying to steal a bike, and he attacks me? Am I covered for defending myself or the potential trauma the thief inflicts on me, was my first question. With a somewhat surprised look, Jim would answer, oh don't worry about it, that's never to happen. Guess he didn't expect that kind of a question from me. I've seen stranger things happen. So I don't buy Jim's answer, but I press on. Okay, so what about any incidents that happen? When an incident happens, just stay there and call me. Okay, so you'll provide me with a job phone then? At this point, Jim starts looking a bit annoyed at me. What for? You have a cell phone, don't you? Just use that. I found that to be a weird response. And while I do look up the occasional schematic for Gus and myself, that's always over the company Wi-Fi we installed. But actually using my cell phone bill for work? Okay, can I put in for the amount of my cell phone bill I use up for work? What the hell for? Jim says, starting to get angry. It's just a single less than a minute phone call to call me over. Now some people might agree with Jim at this point. But let me point out that everyone that is actually on job director's staff payroll has a work phone assigned to them by the company. They want me, the lowest of the low unpaid worker, to use my private phone? No. I draw the line there. But I didn't have to say anything else anymore as Jim goes, "You know what, never mind. Go back to your original spot because you are being too difficult." At the time I filed the whole thing away as something weird and dismissed it as I went on my way, not really having caught on to a changing trend at the company. Fast forward a month or two and I've learned more about electronics, including a specific certification. It is a Dutch certification for electric appliances inside of a business. Basically, it has to do with job safety. Any appliance that is movable by hand needs to be certified. This includes but is not limited to computers, corded power tools, chargers for battery-powered tools, fridges, freezers, and washing machines. If it has a plug on it for a standard electrical outlet, it needs to be certified. Any malfunction from the appliances without compliance can lead to hefty fines from the Job Safety Agency. So, Gus and I do this certification for every location job director has. Gus is a certified inspector and has a specialized testing device. And I can do the job for him under his supervision. I actually do most of the computerized paperwork for him. He is a single-finger, hunt and peck kind of user of the keyboard. I myself am more of a 10-finger blind type. This shaves literally a few months from the work for Gus. The total count of devices tested at just the company itself is 756. Keep that number in mind, folks, as it is important. During one of our drives back to our morning start site just before our shift ends, Gus and I have a talk. He is an older, helpful guy that sometimes worries about people's futures. And he knows how I can easily do the certification on my own. So he starts to talk about maybe a potential future for me to be a certifier. In that conversation I learn the following: getting the diploma is about €50 for a 2-hour seminar. You have to do it yearly to keep your certified status. The testing device costs about €1,000 to buy. And it will cost around €500 to calibrate it to specification every year. If you are a certifier, and you have your own equipment, you can go to a company and ask a minimum of €20 per power plug. I said power plug, not passed or rejected appliances. Just having the plug plugged into the tester is money for me. Remember the number of total devices? That's €15,120 in total. That's already way more than I make a year from the disability pay. For just 2.5 months of work at my current work hours. The only logical thing I could respond with after having calculated that for the first time was, "Thanks, Gus. You've given me some food for thought." About a week after this conversation, Gus tells me that they have a small-time business requiring certification. But he is too busy with another job. So he asks if I could do it instead. I go and I test all the devices they had, 35 plugs in total. I generate the paperwork and ensure that there is a printed copy of the manual for all said devices that are certified. I place 35 signatures on the paperwork in Gus' name. The total time it took for all that was about 2 weeks total. The client is happy, I'm happy, Gus is happy, company is happy. 2 weeks after having completed that, another one comes up. So again, I do it. This time under Gus' supervision. 514 plugs. 2 months of work and my wrist was in agony after setting 514 signatures. Remember, I'm the lowest of the lower unpaid worker there. So I already decided that I wasn't going to be doing that for long. At this point, Gus is almost a single year away from his retirement. And in our daily conversations in his car, he had already pointedly told me that when my retirement hits, I'll be leaving my tools at home and never touching them again unless they pay me. He's the "can't sit still at home" type. So he was going to be sticking at the company as a volunteer together with his wife. She was also working there, but not doing electronics work anymore. And the upper management of job director saw an untapped gold mine. Me, doing the certifications. So, I was called into a small meeting. Gus was there, some HR-like person and one of the underbosses. They started buttering me up about helping me get a certifier license, at a great deal of half off. The testing device they had already bought and paid for, on the one hand possible career choice, on the other hand? No way am I doing that for 80% of minimum wage considering what kind of money that'd be making off of me. Let alone the position of responsibility I'd be left in. As rankings in the company go, I am literally the lowest of the low. I have no say. When Gus found an appliance while doing the certification, would put a cable snipper onto the power cord and cut it as close to the appliance as possible. I don't have that kind of authority. And you'll just know that the company will continue using an appliance, even if I reject it. Now, who do you think is going to take the fall for that if someone gets unscheduled electroshock therapy? Covering the financial situation first, I asked them what I would get in return. Their response left me lukewarm, and I quote, "Payment? This is a bit of responsibility, which is a good thing for you. Yeah, just because I live with special care and get disability, they think that I have no responsibility at all. And I wasn't out to milk them dry or anything. If they did pay me above a certain amount, it wouldn't be a benefit to me but a detriment, as the disability I would be cut, leaving me even worse off. But some compensation would have been nice, right? More relaxed hours, a different job title that would actually allow me to throw out the appliances that didn't make it. A company cell phone maybe? No, they wouldn't budge. So I told them where they could stick their bit of responsibility. Well, tell you something though, because of my disability, I didn't get scolded. Not in any official capacity anyway. But Gus was not happy. In a later conversation I had in his car, he said that I was being stupid. And that I won't make it anywhere in life if I don't try anything new. This is, of course, coming from the guy who's been raving for 2 years now how he'll never pick up his tools again after he's retired. I point out his hypocrisy, and that if he doesn't want to do the work if he's not getting paid, then why should I? He has no answer, of course, and stays quiet. A week passes, and I was notified that Gus no longer wanted to work with me because he disapproved of my work ethics. Well, that suited me just fine. As much as I respect his age and experience, I was getting tired of him harping on about my disability. And his disapproval of how I choose to spend my free time, like the dude is my dad or something. And an hour later I heard that the company was making deals with other companies for the certifications. I had already smelled something fishy a week before Gus no longer wanted to work with me. And I had taken prudence to look for another company that would be happy to have my presence. And the payment they'd get for having me over 4 mornings of the week. The following morning I was called over and they started to tell me about the job at a major company in the area. Upwards of 1,500 appliances. My boss was very enthusiastic about it. He told me that I needed to do that job under Gus' supervision. Meaning Gus would drive me out to there, to then leave me there to do his own workload. Then pick me up again at quitting time. I told the boss that I was happy for him landing such a big job. And I enthusiastically told him that I just got hired somewhere else. And because I'm unpaid I had no obligation to give prior notice. The boss went white as a sheet. He was trying to tell me that I couldn't just do that. And that I had to have a 3-month exit period. I knew it wasn't true. So I just laughed myself all the way out the door to my new job that certainly appreciated me more than this company. Unfortunately, the poster does not state if he is going to still make the certification. I hope he does, as it sounds like a good job opportunity for him. What do you think? Comment down below. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you had a great time watching it. If you would like to support the channel, please subscribe to it and hit the notification bell. It really helps me out. See you soon. Bye bye.